This happened when I was 15. My closest friend, Lucas, invited me over for the night. His parents were going to be away all weekend, and he thought it would be the perfect time for us to hang out. I biked over, parked my bike in his backyard, and slipped inside through the back door. We spent hours playing every video game in his collection, from FIFA to Call of Duty, with snacks and junk food scattered all over the floor. As the night wore on, we lost interest in games and ended up watching part of a movie before getting bored. Around 10 p.m., we decided to spice things up with some prank calls. Lucas dialed a few pizza places, laughing as he tried to make the employees uncomfortable. When it was my turn, I dialed a random number, hoping to reach someone at home. On my fourth try, someone picked up. The voice on the other end was deep and gruff, and instead of a polite, "Hello?" he just said, "Yeah." Lucas's laughter in the background made me nervous, and I stumbled over my words. Mid-sentence, I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. I had never done a prank call before, and I was terrible at it. The guy on the other end was silent, and I tried to regain my composure. I finally managed to speak. Sir, would it be all right if I borrowed one of the wheels from your car?" There was a pause, and then he asked, "What's your name, kid?" I answered, "Bob." He shot back, "Really? You sure it's not Lucas?" The words hit me like a punch. I looked up at Lucas, whose face had gone pale. I immediately hung up, not wanting to stay on the line for a second longer. "Lucas, who the hell was that?" I demanded. "I don't know," he said, his voice shaky. "Does your caller ID show your name or something?" "No, it just shows my dad's name." We tried to figure out how that guy could have known Lucas's name, especially since he was too young to be on those personal data-sharing websites. We looked up answers online, but found nothing. I suggested Lucas call his dad, but he refused since his parents weren't supposed to know he had anyone over. We decided to go back to watching the movie, though the weird call lingered in the back of my mind. Just as I was starting to forget about it, we heard the unmistakable sound of the front storm door opening, followed by the doorknob turning. The door only turned halfway before the lock stopped it. Lucas quickly turned off the TV, and I rushed to the window to see who it was. I pulled back the blinds just a little, and there, standing in the dark, was a tall figure. The man saw me immediately, and I quickly yanked the blinds back down. "Who is it?" Lucas whispered. We crouched down in the kitchen, trying to stay quiet. We heard the gate to the backyard creak open, right outside the kitchen window. "Damn it," I muttered. "I forgot to shut the back door." Lucas urged me to go shut it, so I made my way toward the hallway leading to the back door. But as I reached it, I froze. There was a dark silhouette standing outside, staring into the house. I couldn't tell if he saw me, but he definitely seemed to be looking inside. He opened the door and stepped in. I backed away, motioning for Lucas to follow me upstairs. We moved as quietly as possible, shutting the door to his room behind us and crawling under the bed. The fabric covering the bottom of the bed kept us hidden, unless someone lifted it. We could hear footsteps downstairs, moving closer to the stairs. The footsteps slowly made their way up. I held my breath as the door to Lucas's room opened. The figure moved toward the closet and started rummaging through the clothes. I could hear the hangers scraping as the coats shifted. Then, the footsteps moved to the bed and stopped right next to us. My heart raced in my chest, and Lucas's breathing grew louder and louder. I covered his mouth with my hand to keep him quiet. Everything was silent for what felt like hours. I finally moved my hand away and whispered to him, "You think we can make a run for it?" Before he could answer, the most blood-curdling scream filled the room. Lucas was dragged out from under the bed. In a panic, I crawled out and saw him struggling with the man. I grabbed a nearby screwdriver and rushed to help, jamming it into the man's back. He let go of Lucas with a scream of pain, and we took the opportunity to run. We didn't want to run onto the road. It would make us too visible. But we knew we couldn't make it to the neighbor's house in time. We dove into the trees at the edge of the woods, crouching behind a bush and watching the house. We saw the back door open, and the man stepped outside, looking around the yard. Then he scanned the woods, his eyes scanning in our direction. I ducked down, hoping he hadn't seen us. "Lucas, he's coming," I hissed. "What?" he whispered back in a panic. "Dude, we need to move now!" We scrambled through the woods, trying to stay quiet despite the crunching leaves underfoot. Lucas tripped, and I knelt beside him, praying we had run far enough. Moments later, we heard footsteps slowing down just a few trees away. We held still, hearts pounding in our chests. The footsteps passed us, then took off in another direction. We waited until the coast seemed clear, then bolted back toward the house. We made it to the backyard, into the house, and I immediately shut the back door behind us. Lucas called the police while I kept watch through the windows. It was pitch black outside, and I couldn't see anything. In a moment of desperation, I turned on the backyard lights. In the distance, by the woods, I saw him. The man was standing still, staring at the tree line. When he saw the lights, he quickly disappeared back into the woods. That was the last time we saw him. For years, I wondered if that prank call had somehow been connected to what happened. It didn't make sense, but it was too strange to be a coincidence. As of today, 5 years later, nothing has happened since that night. Lucas and I are still best friends, and we never told anyone the full story. But I can't shake the feeling that we were close. Too close. My wife and I have had our share of disagreements, but there was one night that really pushed me over the edge. She wouldn't stop nagging about the most trivial things. It got so bad when I forgot to put the toilet seat down that she started yelling at me with a voice so loud and shrill it was unbearable. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore, so I called my buddy Paul. He told me I could crash at his place for the night, and honestly, I was exhausted and just needed a break from the chaos. Besides, Paul had this massive house, something my wife was always complaining about, how all my friends seemed to live in nicer homes than we did. I showed up at Paul's, and we cracked open a few beers, talking like old friends do. He said I could stay as long as I needed, but I told him I'd only stay for one night. I didn't want to overstay my welcome. Paul had 3 guest rooms, which was kind of impressive. He only used one of them, though, and the others sat empty most of the time. He mentioned he kept them for things like parties. The guest rooms were all in a row, right next to each other, with Paul's own bedroom just across the hall. It was a weird layout, but it allowed me to hear odd sounds coming from the next room. At first, I thought it was Paul moving around or something, but it got annoying, so I decided to check it out. I tried the doorknob, but it was locked. I cracked the door to Paul's room and asked him if he heard the noise. He was already in bed and hadn't noticed anything. When I asked why the doors were locked, he explained that he kept them that way because of some personal stuff he kept in the rooms. I told him about the strange noise, but he just told me to go back to sleep, and if I heard it again, to come back to him. So I did. I laid back down, but the noise stopped for a while. Just as I was drifting off, I heard a faint tapping on the wall. It came from the room next door. Then, I heard a soft voice. My heart jumped, and I rushed back to Paul's room. This time, he took me seriously. He grabbed the keys to the locked rooms and unlocked the door next to mine. We stepped inside, and a chill hit us as we entered. The window was wide open, and the closet was ajar. We started searching the room. The bed had strange impressions, like someone had been sitting on it. The closet was filled with empty bags, and some of Paul's valuables were gone. Suddenly, Paul ran out into the hallway, and I followed, confused. He checked the other guest room, and as soon as he unlocked the door, we saw a shadowy figure leap out of the window and onto the patio roof. Paul almost chased after him, but instead, we rushed outside through the back door, hoping to catch him. By the time we reached the yard, the figure was gone. But what we found in that room was even more disturbing. The sheets on the bed were soaked in blood. On the floor of the closet was the butcher knife that Paul had been missing, with bloodstains on it, and once again, his valuables were gone. It hit me hard. These people, probably homeless and likely dangerous, had been living in Paul's house for over a week. He'd even joked about how fast his food disappeared while he was so skinny, and now it all made sense. As far as we know, they were never caught. It feels like it happened just yesterday. I was 10 years old, and it was my very first sleepover, one of those unforgettable moments in childhood. My best friend Jordan invited me over. He had this massive basement where we could play video games until late at night, well past midnight, and then crash on the couches, skipping brushing our teeth like little rebels. After hours of gaming, we finally decided to get some rest. I fell asleep easily. At some point during the night, I woke up. I didn't know the time, but I could tell the TV was still on, though the screen was just a blank glow. The faint light it emitted was enough for me to notice something odd in the far corner of the basement, near the stairs. There was a tall shape standing there. I couldn't make out exactly what it was. It was just tall. It almost seemed to touch the ceiling. The TV shut off suddenly, and the dim light disappeared completely, leaving the room in darkness. The shift in the atmosphere was so eerie that I almost screamed, but instead, I just squeezed my eyes shut and lay still, not moving an inch. I don't even remember falling back asleep. All I recall is waking up to a horrified scream coming from upstairs. It was Jordan's mom. "Ah!" Her scream sent a chill down my spine. Jordan bolted up beside me, and we exchanged a quick glance before we raced upstairs to his parents' room. His mom was there, crying hysterically, while his dad was frantically searching the room, turning everything upside down, trying to find whatever it was she had seen. He stormed out of the room, searching the house from top to bottom, but there was nothing, no signs of anyone entering or leaving the house. To this day, Jordan and I are still friends. The last time I brought it up, he mentioned that his mom doesn't like to talk about it. But one time, she did tell him that she had seen a tall, dark figure standing by their bedroom door. And I have no doubt in my mind that what she saw that night was the same thing I saw in the basement.